Welcome back to the Home and Life Design Summit, Season 3, where we're having conversations with amazing awakened leaders and intuitives, having conversations about embodying art and beauty to create more joy. I am your host, Fallon Jordan, and I am so delighted and honored to have Ben Harris here. You probably know him as the Fear Alchemist. Thank you so much for being here, Ben.
Hello, Fallon. Thank you for having me. Season 3, let's go.
So I want to share a little bit about you. If for some reason nobody there know who you are, definitely get in Ben's world. It's a beautiful place to be. So Ben is a fear alchemist, an intuitive guide, and rooted in love and the superpower of belief in himself and others. Ben is a testament of what possibilities arise when you love fear and trust your inner knowing. And his strong sense of self continues to lead him on an ever present journey of life, and his life is pivoted many times in many directions, which is very fun to see and hear if you are following him on Instagram or following his podcast. And his broad experiences have created a platform to understand and support his clients in overcoming their deepest fears as they return home to themselves, which we're talking about home and life design. That's really what it's all about, right? Is getting back to yourself.
Mm, I love that. That's cool. Yeah, perfect connection, synchronicity there at the end, right? Of like coming home to ourselves. I love that. That's exactly what it is.
I love that. Yeah. When I got the hit about home and life design, I was like, I like this. This sounds really fun.
We didn't even plan it, but it's just it matches and aligned with like home and life design and coming home to yourself. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. Because yeah, most people would, I mean, I didn't think that at first, but that's exactly really what it like the simple saying of like home is where the heart is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we use that. Go ahead.
I would say, and the way that you've designed your life is so much about what you talk about. So I'd love to just kind of dive in and, what was your ultimate goal of creating this life for yourself? And like, how does that relate to having a joyful life?
Oh man, I mean, part of it is like just it's that's a great question. So it's like specific and also so non-specific
Mhm.
of like there's been certain moments where I'm like, oh man, like this is what I want, where it's maybe just like for example, like you might be referring to something I posted, I think it was yesterday on Monday
Yeah.
when like in the morning as a family, like we're visiting Belle's family in Minnesota. And so like we just walked down to the lake and like played on the swings and then came home and our baby went to take a nap. And then we meditated together and like had breakfast together and had like a deep conversation before my first call. So it's like that is like I wanted that freedom, but I didn't know exactly what that would look like. Like all I knew is I had a feeling of like I know this isn't, this corporate structure or stagnancy of what it needs to look like. Like you're stuck in this, you have to do this. This is the only way.
Mhm.
Like I know I'm not built and made for that, and really, I think no one is. It's just it sometimes it takes time to wake up to the fact that you're not built for that, and of course it's scary leaving that because that's safety and that's how the world is designed. So it feels like you're going against the entire world, and so that's scary. But yeah, it's just really for me it was like this feeling of like I know I'm meant for something and it's not this.
I love that. I love that so much. I know you've shared a lot about that, but could you give us like a little snippet of what that journey was like?
Oh man, yeah. So like you said, if people want to go check out more, go in depth, the Fear Alchemist is the podcast, and I'm the Fear Guy on Instagram. But I mean, it's been a crazy journey, but definitely like part of the journey that's probably seems the most crazy to people is when I quit my job. So like it was in 2019, and I had just accepted a brand new job. So I was born and raised in Utah, and then I spent a long time growing in this company. I was hired when there was like 50 people. By the time I left, there's like 1,500 people. And so obviously like I got to learn a lot in that time. And so I accepted this new job across the country. Like that was just even a big thing for me because like that's all I knew. Like my entire adult life was spent at this company.
Great.
So that was really scary for me. But then shortly after that is when I decided to leave. And thankfully, I made it a risky investment into crypto, and I invested 40 grand, and it was all on credit cards. And I invested into crypto, and it was doing well enough where it was probably be paying me if I wanted to cash out like 5 or 10K a month. And so I was like, oh, like this is pretty sweet. Like, you know, I could just keep doing this forever. Like, no biggie, just have the passive income that everyone dreams about. But, life always has other plans. So I finally get the courage to quit my job. And then later that year, I think 2 or 3 months later, is when I found out that that investment was a scam. So I lost 40 grand. So not only do I not have a job anymore, but I'm 40 grand in debt. So, and I've never had debt before. Like, I've always just been the perfect kid, like, doing everything the right way. But, now I know, and even I'm the kind of crazy self-belief, delusional belief person where in that moment I told myself that, like, oh, like I lost $40,000 so I could learn how to make $40,000. And I told a friend this. I remember on the phone, I told him, and I'm not sure if he really got it. And he's like, "What are you talking about, dude? This is the worst thing ever. And like, we need to be scared, and like, go back to your job or whatever." But for whatever reason, I knew I had a bigger reason and path for it. And long story short, it did. But that seed of losing that money allowed me to be so open to just where, the universe wanted me to go. And that was to be a coach. And so once I've pivoted my business of why I quit my initial 9 to 5 job for, which, wasn't making any money. And then I rebranded into the Fear Guy. I signed 4 clients in 1 week. And so that's definitely a sign that's like, hey, you're on the right path, keep going. And there's been a lot of, definitely a journey since then. It's always a journey when you're doing your own thing and being an entrepreneur, deciding to, share your gift with the world and monetize it. But that's definitely the big, like, such a big shift for me. And so many things have happened since then that have just reconfirmed to me that, like, truly, you know, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, which is one of my favorite quotes.
Yes, I love
And
that.
so, long-winded saying, I'm just, yeah, like, do the thing you're afraid of. And that was an initiation for me, before I started guiding people through it. And I'm always going through initiations of, like, I need to go through what I'm afraid of again and again and again so I can hold space and guide people into, like, new devils of their own fear. So I have to constantly, alchemize my own.
I love that. Yeah. And everyone that's speaking definitely has been on this journey. And I just kind of felt called, like, this is just such a crucial part of the conversation, is that we've all been there, but like once you make that jump, like your life just opens up in these beautiful ways. I know we're talking a little bit offline and you share it on social, but creating this beautiful life that you have for yourself where you have freedom and you look fear in the face and treat it as a friend.
Mhm.
Like, do you want to kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
About just, like, looking at fear in the face.
Yeah, and just like your life every day. I mean, it just feels and people can see that it's just like a very beautiful, joyful experience that you've created for yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And it's like, Belle, my partner, and I, we were talking about this yesterday, I think it was, because humans, our gift and our curse is that we adapt to anything and everything.
Right.
So if you're in a shitty situation, you're going to adapt to it, and that becomes your normal. And then also, in the situation I'm in, it's, yeah, it is awesome, right? Like, we get to travel this entire month in the summer, and, like, we don't have to do PTO or vacation or ask anyone. Like, we're just, like, doing what we want to do.
Right.
And but it's like, to get there, it's, I mean, definitely scary,
Mhm.
because it's, you're letting go of a consistent income or a consistent paycheck, and you're going against, like, people definitely blatantly told me, like, to not quit my job. And, like, they weren't wrong. Like, seriously, like, that was the smart thing to tell someone. Like, Ben, you're not making any money in it. Like, what are you doing? Figure this out more. Don't do it yet. But at the same time, that's their own fear speaking too. So I just had this feeling to go take the leap and figure it out on the way down, like jumping off the cliff. And that's what we've created. And sometimes I do forget, that it's like, oh, like this is our life and this isn't what everyone has. And so it takes questions like this, or, we practice being aware that this is our life. And that is like, it's, what's today? Tuesday afternoon, and it's like, I just, as a quick 5 minute break, I went out and like said hi to my family and like kissed them and loved them and had a little quick bite to eat before I came back to this, which isn't like the normal for a lot of people. So, but we've created it. It's like we are fortunate, but to me, luck is just more like magnetism,
100%.
where it's not like it's actually like a physical law. Like it's not just, oh, you're lucky and there's no rhyme or reason. Oh, I forgot what this quote is. It says, oh, luck is the name for law that is not yet understood, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not the exact quote, but it's just saying that like, it's the same. I love this quote where it says, magic is the name for science that we don't understand yet. So it's very similar where it's like magic and science are the same thing. It's like law and luck are the same thing. It's just we might not understand it, but there's a reason why it's happening.
I love that. Yeah, I think that was in Think and Grow Rich. It was one of the first times I heard about the luck law thing, which I love so much.
Yes.
So good. So I would love to know a little bit more about your relationship, because the way that you do talk and like some of the conversations that you have on your podcast and stuff, you involve a lot of art. Like the word art comes up a lot in your world, and that's why I've
Art.
to have you. Yeah, art.
Oh, cool.
And just like having things look at art, healing is art. And that was
Mm.
one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Like, when did you start just feeling like that word art coming through? Because whether it was subconscious or not, like you just your guests, like so many people are talking about art around you. And I just think it's
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I that's the first time I've been asked a question like that, so I appreciate you spotting that, because it definitely wasn't like conscious, but um at the same time, like I know it is art, it's a dance. I probably think of it as a dance, which is art or creation.
yeah.
And like it is, and at the same time too, like going back to like the whole science law thing, like that's a creation art too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't have to be, but yeah, just the whole art thing to me is like you, it sounds so simple and maybe kind of cheesy, but right, it's like we have this blank canvas that we can always just continue to like create whatever we want. And I ask big questions to people a lot of the time, like that's my job. And I always, try and remind myself to ask them to myself. And one of them is like, what would you do if it was like if fear didn't exist? If there was 100% chance that if it was impossible to fail, like what would you do? That question is actually what helped me quit my job,
Mm-hmm.
because before it, I was just thinking about like, oh, like what's gonna go wrong? Like how can I mitigate the risk? But once I asked myself the question of like, oh, like if it was impossible to fail, what would you do? And then you immediately tap into the heart, into the intuition, into the truth, and into the love. And there is no failure, which is the truth anyway, that there is no failure. So it's like, oh, like I would quit, no doubt. And that energy, that confidence is what makes you be successful anyway. And that is all just like art. And it's like, that's the creation. And just reminding myself, I was on a run the other day and I felt like I was in my own motivational movie or something, because I was like saying to my head, like, this is my life,
I love that.
like in a Rocky movie or something. And but it's true. It's just like, man. And I'm just borderline obsessed. Not a, I used to say I'm obsessed, I have an obsession with progression, but I'm definitely more present than I used to be. But it's that same thing of just like, ooh, like just getting everything I can out of this present moment and out of this life, because I know I am limitless.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, but I know I'm not, like, you don't know what you don't know. So it's
Great.
like, even though I know I can do anything I want, I still don't know things yet. And so, yeah, I still get frustrated. I'm like, why isn't it like this yet? Or why isn't it like that yet? But that's just part of the human experience too. And that's okay.
100%. Yeah. And when you ask people and you ask yourself, like, if anything was possible and I could have this, what would I want? I mean, I'm sure you see all the time, like people like freeze up and they're like, whoa, like anything, like really anything
Yes.
at all. I could have the beach house, the lake house, the house and like, you know what I mean? It's just all this conditioning just like shuts down. And then when you open up that possibility, all these beautiful things get to happen.
Yeah. And I was just on a call before this, was coaching somebody, and very similar. Like they didn't even know because they've lived a life of living for other people. And so it's, you literally have a fear of doing what you want to do. So you don't know what you prefer. You don't know what you desire, let alone what are your biggest dreams. So it's, you have to start, yeah, it's like, ooh, like what do I want? Like what feels good, what feels fun, what feels exciting. And that's definitely some of the work I've done too, is just what does Ben want to do?
Yeah. How does Ben like to embody beauty and joy?
Well, Ben likes to answer it in the third person, real humble. How do I like to embody joy and what?
Beauty.
Joy and beauty. That's great. I think beauty, I would say that's a work in progress, in the sense that like that's probably not something I think about the most.
Yeah.
Uh, right of this, to me, like I don't really go into how things look, I feel like, but that's not only what beauty is, but that's just my initial, you know, thought of it. But beauty for sure, I know is like nature's, but probably gets me the most. I'm just like, whoa, like this is, especially when I see something I've never seen, or I come to something I've already seen with like new eyes and new appreciation, then it like stops me in my tracks, and just makes me realize that like the ordinary is so extraordinary. And then with joy, I mean, this has been, a practice for me too, instead of just doing something because I'm supposed to, or because I'm supposed to do something big and special and taking it so serious. So definitely like trying to have more fun. Like I'm working on launching something, and it's called Soulful Selling. And
Ooh,
it's a lot on what I've worked on. But I'm just like, I'm asking myself the question of like, what is fun? Like, how do I want to do this in a fun way? Because I used to believe that like it needs to be, calculated and like serious and really important and impactful and profound, which it automatically will be. And how can I have fun with it instead of like being just like controlling or serious about it?
totally. Well, I think you're doing a great job of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things about your programs for sure. So I'm sure everyone would love to hear a little bit more about your free gift and how to get into your world.
Yeah, so it's 2:22 my time, so perfect time for that question.
Yes.
Um, so is this training, this master class, whatever you want to call it, will help you tap into your intuition, so you will be able to make inspired and empowered decisions, so you can just trust yourself more. And a lot of people have a hard time knowing, like, is this my fear speaking? That sounds really logical and like the right thing to do, because oftentimes the thing that we want to do is the scary thing. That's not always the case, but a lot of the time it tends to be. And so it'll just very simply guide you into like, what is that voice? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it look like for you? And so you can start making more, empowered decisions for you and not for other people. And seriously, like what we're talking about, like design your life like for you, and have that freedom that you truly want to create and enjoy, and not just live because I guess I'm just here just to kind of, punch in, punch out, and go through the motions, but
Right.
actually be so intentional and do what you want to do, and do what you like, what your soul already knows it can do.
I love that so much. And you guys can get that by just clicking the link below. And it sounds like a little visual because a lot of people, when you are like opening them up to this like possibility of leaving the 9 to 5, and it's like, I just would love to have the mornings that you get to have. And I'm like, well, what about
Mhm.
the rest of the day? Like you can have that too. It's not just like one little thing. And it's like once you kind of get out of that box and open up, it's just like a very beautiful thing to experience. So I'm really grateful for you giving your insight and us just being able to have these conversations, because the more conversations we have like this, the more people that are going to get out of that, what I call, just to me, it's like a rat race, or a zombie walking, zombies in cars, whatever you want to call it. But when you're living your soul purpose, you just get to be in this beautiful space. And I'm just so grateful that you're sharing all of your wisdom and insight in such a loving, authentic way. So thank you for doing the work, and thank you for quitting that job and making those really big risks and getting to where you are.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I received that because it was a freaking, yeah, it
I mean,
really,
grand, like I'm sure there's some people that are still like obsessing about you saying that because it's like
mhm.
it's just a crazy thing for a lot of people to think about.
Yeah, but it is weird. Like, it is weird to think about, but it's all just, yeah, like once I know something, I can't unknow it. So it's like, once I had that feeling of like, oh, this is what I'm called to do, it's like, to me, I'm just very simple. Like, going back to logic, kind of logic works against us, but to me, I use it in the sense that like, I either do the thing that I'm scared of doing, and I have a greater than 0% chance of achieving it, or if I stay where I'm at, I have 0% chance of achieving it, and I fail automatically. So it's very logical to actually go for the thing you want. So it's like, once I know and had that feeling and that realization of like, oh, like it's actually dumb for me to stay,
Yeah.
which is a flip. It's like people think like, oh, you're so brave, and yes, and like all that, and it's a big risk. But also the flip, the reframe is that the most risky thing you can do is stay.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Like, so it's like for me, it's just it computes, it equates to follow, your heart and go big.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for joining us. It means so much.
Thank you, Fallon. Thank you for your light, your energy, and your freaking joy. I'll say you embody beauty and joy. So
Thank
thanks for
you. I
just for being there.
appreciate that so much. And definitely click below, guys, to get Ben's free gift and to get in his beautiful, wonderful world full of all of the things that are just going to make your heart really happy.
Yay.
Well, I am so grateful for you, Ben. I am so grateful for everyone who is here listening, and I will see you in our next conversation.
Love it. Thanks, y'all. Nice to meet you.
Bye for now.